So, welcome back, everybody. It's a great pleasure to introduce the finale of this symposium with a local speaker. Ludger Hovestadt is from the Department of Architecture here at ETH, and he has done some very interesting work on a project he will tell us about tonight. Ludger Hovestadt studied architecture at Aachen, the RWTH Rheinisch-Westfälische Technische Hochschule in Aachen, Germany, and also at the Hochschule für Gestaltung. Is that? The G is Gestaltung, right? That's a design school in Vienna. And then he was working at the Technical University of Karlsruhe. And since the 1st July of 2000, he has the chair for computer-aided, what is that? Architectural design?
Yeah.
Architectural design here at Zurich for more than 15 years now. So he will tell you what he has been doing all the time. But one thing I really want to show you, this is a book, as you can see. It's a thick book. It's a heavy book. It has more than 800 pages, and its title is exactly the same. I don't know the publisher, actually. But you will find it on the internet. I found it myself. And the title is exactly the same as the title of his talk tonight. A Quantum City Mastering the Generic. Professor Hovestadt, welcome.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Okay. I'm architect by education. I never built a real building. I directly got into research with AI. So I'm not a graphic guy. So I'm not really fond of computer graphics, which is a little strange with the title of my chair, Computer-Aided Architectural Design, which is a disaster in itself. But I tried 2 times to change the name, and all my colleagues, no, it's good like that, and so on. So now it's a kind of heritage I have there. So I'm in artificial intelligence since '85. So, and I'm in the structure of buildings, and I strictly believe that architecture is not visible. Architectural models are not visible. So, and to bring that into a drawing, for example, in Renaissance with perspective and so on, is a rhetorical trick. As the renderings today, that we put that photorealistic and so on, it's just a trick to convince customers to buy my architectural model. The architectural model is an intellectual construct. It's how to make your arguments, make your points, how to organize space and time in societies and so on. So this is what I'm thinking. Being here, working on that with generous support, with a lot of PhDs and so on, in around 2008, so it's 10 years ago, we succeeded with a kind of Turing test. So we had a fully automatic architectural design, made it anonymously to an architectural competition, and we won a prize. So, from then on, it was clear that what is thought as architecture is an engineering body job. So it's very clear how to do that to convince people that this is a good solution. And this is automatic. So and then we said, okay, there are 2 ways to proceed. First, simply make 1,000 of these competitions a year, win 200, I don't know, yeah? Going better and better. This is a kind of Google story, which is a pity that we didn't start this. Or say, okay, now rethink what architecture is, or what the city is, and so on. In this case, the city. So think what, and I think it's what we started to taste and to smell with this Turing test is the generic. This is what Rem Koolhaas tells the generic, or the junk space, and so on. So, and we smelled that and experienced that. So therefore, we started for now 8 to 10 years, making a step back, getting out of any pragmatics. Up to then, I founded 6 companies. 5 out of 6, 5 still survive. There are 160 employees there, so it's not this bad. In all these fields, it's building information models, it's Internet of Things, smart buildings, and all these things we've seen. Big databases for whole Switzerland and for all big marketplaces and so on. So this is okay, but as a person, I'm out for 8 years, and my key interest now is to reason about what the hell is going on. So means very strong vector in philosophy, very strong vector in mathematics, and in principle computer science. Means try to understand what AI or machine intelligence is. So, and I will tell you these stories applied on cities and so on. The experience is then with the Future Cities Lab. This was a lab started in Singapore. We had been invited for 3 years there. And we came there with these questions, and then it was simply puzzling. Good. This is a super performative consulting. It's a kind of constitution driven by consulting, and I wouldn't say this is a city at all. So it's super organized. It's a company is framed like a city or a national state, has special status by that, and it's a strong company. And after lived there for a year, after 3-5 months, it really got very striking. It simply has, and I couldn't understand that, no civil society in the understanding of, there's no politics, simply zero politics, very interesting, that this is working. Like in campus, if you go to Novartis campus, if you make things they don't like, go out. If you pay or contribute, welcome. Very funny. So people, because it's performative, somehow like, and the most interesting thing for this year was, how the hell does it work that 5 million people somehow behave like that? And it's in this performative, attractive way. How is this working, a concept like that? So, but with our research interest, we got really frustrated. Nobody was a limb interested in what we are just questioning the whole story they are doing. This kind of performance. We said, yeah, we can do that. We make machines and it's automatic. So it's not a city. We just make it. So we want to ask, what is a city? If you can just make it working. What is a city then? So no way. So, and then there were clashes with my colleagues who want to get contracts, and the urban planners, and they want to run their offices and these kind of things. And out of frustration, we said, nah, then write this book, collect, and it's a phrase to the beauty of a human intellect. So, and it's a kind of circle and spectrum of what you can have about our history, being connected globally, and making your personal point. So this is the spectrum in today's media about the city, a citizen. And we adapted this story of Orlando. Yeah, you can do that. You can start. And this, too smart, these systems. Very smart. lost my... So this is like the Odyssey. It's Orlando in these different chapters. It has 4 chapters. It's like a helix working around, looking around, according to our cultural Western history. And it's making a scan of our history reflected in today's media, somehow usual to what you know. Orlando started in ancient Greece, trying to find the city on this travel to Alexandria, find that. And it never arrived. He arrived in New York and London, 1968, and so on. And Orlando changed gender over centuries and all. And that's the story. And this is a spectrum of what his personality is. So it's a kind of panorama of today's citizen. So and it's a praise of the human intellect and the diversity of that. Exactly opposite towards everything what he experienced there in Singapore, which is a crazy working machine. So, therefore, I think we strictly have to distinguish, and this is what we are doing. We say urbanism is what we experience in Singapore. So it's good if the planet is urbanized. So which simply means it's good to have clean water, it's electricity, internet, school buildings, ambulance, and so on. It's good if it's available for every person. So we want to have that, no question. Then people get literate, they go to school, whatever. So I would say this is urbanism. So and it's important that we realize that this is an incredible success story around these things. So that this urbanism, so it's improving extremely. So when I was born, there had been 4 billion people on this planet. 1 of them had been able to read. Now it's 8 or something. 7 out of 8 are able to read. So in my lifetime, it's 7 times more people able to read and to communicate via media and so on. It's insane. So the same with life expectancy and so on. In my lifespan, it's plus 20 years on the whole planet in average. So that's incredible. So that's, I think, is urbanism. But it's not what the city is. So what is a city? So then what I think, I don't know, but if you look, and I look across cultures and so on, cities is where the gods are living. And you're always welcome if you follow their rules. That's a city. And it gets an intellectual thing. It's get orthogonal to this agricultural understanding of the industrialized infrastructural ground. So I would say what we treat as urbanism today is a kind of industrialized agriculture. I would say that, and if you look at the pictures, and you see pictures in this scan there, of a tomato field, how they harvest that in the Netherlands, and then you have a picture of how they produce mobile phones, cell phones in China. It's the same kind of infrastructure. So there's no principal difference. And I think that's sustainable. So they really want to have both the tomato people and the mobile phone people. They want to have tomorrow the same setup like yesterday. They always want to do that. And that's good for people of infrastructures. It should work. I want to have tomatoes, I want to have mobile phones. So and I think that's our ground. That's urbanism. And now think about the city. So and if you are this sustainable or green and so on, you never would have a university, a monastery. You never would have an opera or a book. So and this is what we are forgetting. And if we're mixing these things up and getting this engaged in doing the right thing, following the rules of refining infrastructures. Of course, it's to be refined, but it's there. So, yeah. Therefore, my talk, for example, is not, and you will be a little disturbed, you will not understand anything. I will not provoke you to buy something and so on. You will be confused. So I will make it simple. I don't want to sell something. I just want to get your intellect, that you start to appreciate your intellect and get an idea that this is, it's beautiful around there. And then you can do things. Whatever it is. I have no recipe. Because the recipes are with the machines. Therefore, I don't want to be a farmer. I hope one can call me a citizen. I don't want to be a farmer. I don't know what I will do tomorrow. So because this farming is with the machines. In a very sophisticated sense, as I told the story with the design engine. So the problem with these computers and with this urbanization, the more successful it is, and I think this is the limit of growth, yeah? It's getting simpler and simpler. Therefore, you get these kind of infantile MIT stories all day. The problem is not that we understand computers. So by getting better interfaces and so on. The problem is with these interfaces, they understand us. They simply say, I know you, I understand you, click me, I know you want it. They understand us. So these crazy interfaces with one click do anything of what you like is this kind of rhetorics which keeps you a farmer. Just preventing you out of the city. Yeah? So then we have to realize, we had a lot of examples. I had a lecture with students this afternoon, but the lectures I listened to around this problem here. Yeah? That's with Gödel, systems are either incomplete or incorrect. So it's very clear. So we have to play with that. We discuss with the dinner. Yeah? And then, for example, it's very, very important that you can't touch data. And theoretically make no sense. Sense is dissolving. And you can't see them. And to promote that, we make billions and billions of pictures. Each day, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And nobody remembers what it took pictures of. It's evolving. It makes no sense anymore what we are seeing. Or it gets radical, a point to radical rhetorics, so that we are tricked out. Yeah? And therefore, I think, in contrast to sense, looking, touching, and so on, which can be emulated and simulated like hell, tricked like whatever. We have to learn to talk. And this is the creation of meaning. It's just orthogonal to that. So this is something we added as well. Is there some joke? No? Okay, we may make it. No. We'd like the triangle and the gnomon, or with Thales and so on. Then you have the vertical. Then there's the shadow of the sun. And then these are rational and real. So, and the diagonal is the area in between. This is irrational. So the diagonal is the multiplication of the vertical and the horizontal. So it's an area as a line. So it's not of that world, of the things, of the shadow and the stick. It's an intellectual thing. The diagonal is not there. You cannot measure it. You simply have to say symbol square root. And then you can work with it. But it's intellectual. It's not of this world. So you have to talk about it. So this came with the phonetical writing and so on. We had this citation with Plato and so on, that you can trust the writer. Or it's complicated with the tribe. So it's the same thing today. That we are able to cover a range of rational and the real, cover it, multiply that, and bring that back to our experience. And we are able to play that out of the whatever, out of intellect. And this is about talking. You can't see it. You can't see the diagonal. You have to talk about it, you symbolize it, but it's not there. So this I would say, you can sense the rationals, so the legs, I don't know the English words, the rational things and the real, but not the irrational. This is the creation of meaning. So therefore, I strongly would say, of course, it always can be discussed. It's not a system. And it's not about algorithms. And therefore, it's not a tool. It's a toolability, or it's the applicability and so on. But it's not, so it's like the stick being able to draw any shadow. So a computer can have any application. And it's super simple to do that. Especially if you have your data, if you have the whole cosmos, you make the shadow you like. So it's not any longer about analytics and engineering and so on. So, and therefore I think it's all about, it's about literacy. That we are able to talk, to write this way, to be able to communicate. It's a political problem, it's not a technical one any longer, and so on. And this is what I want to show. So if you want to describe what happens in the 20th century with urbanization and so on, I think the turn towards this urbanization and so on, this was with quantum physics, this was with the turn in physics from thermodynamics to quantum physics around 1880, 1900, with all the mathematicians, with all the artists, with the physicians, and so on. With new kinds of philosophy around 1900. This is a principal turn, the crisis of intuition, and so on. So, therefore, I think it turned. So we had a crisis of, it's called crisis of intuition, so we can't trust what we see any longer. So that's the birth of what we are struggling with today. So, and then I think if you want to do urbanization, and this is what very promising, then and think about urbanization and so on, we have to look at this time. It started there. And in architecture, it's very prominent. They started simply to build these white blocks, spread them all over the world. So for hospitals, for schools, and so on. They simply had these white blocks, very famous, international style. They put it everywhere on this planet. So then it took 20 years, everybody got angry about that. So now I think if you want urbanization, I think it's necessary that there are schools and that there are hospitals or gas stations or whatever, so energy distribution and so on. If you want to do that, you can't do it with a Swiss chalet or with any other special kind of architecture. You simply really need a white box. There's no way around. The first thing, I think this is what we experience with social media. So if you really want to distribute it worldwide, you have to make it this stupid as Facebook is doing it. So then it takes a reasonable amount of time, then people understand the concept of a hospital, and they say, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't like the white box. And then they color the box, and they domesticate it. This is what I think we now face with Facebook and all the social media. We say, it's okay being connected, but connected as what? So therefore you have to start to domesticate these technologies in your local context. And again, we have these quantum phenomena with it. So we get, what we experience is that we had this kind of radical globalization. Now it opened this kind of simplicity and getting simpler and simpler and cheaper, goes to all the, into all privacy, whatever under skin, whatever, all your houses and so on, and you can't hold it. There's a kind of globalization, what we are fighting with. So now you have to say how to domesticate that. So to originate architectural and a question, and an original question of the city. So therefore it's very clear that these big companies, and I played it when I was in smart buildings and in energy distribution and so on, I had made these kind of computers for that, and to make balanced networks and so on. I was for 5 years in all these discussions. And it's very clear that these companies push that, urbanization. But I think the time for that is over. So urbanization is done. This is the limit of growth we experience. So that's clear. So, and then you say, now, domesticate it. If it is there, good. But, and then we have to know, and we have to understand that, and we have to be able to talk about it. And make a city. Nobody knows how it works. And it will be different wherever you are. And you play with the gods. And you burn surplus of the urbanization, intellectually, in masterful competition. So therefore I really dislike this understanding of sustainable city or green city and so on, the celebration of subordinating your intellect underneath these agricultural needs. We call green, blue, sustainable, and so on. That's an affront against my intellect. I really don't like it. I don't want to be a farmer. So I like farming people. It's not the problem. So, but I think it's not, so for me as a person, it's not adequate. Yeah? I don't want to be that. And I don't want to be this picky like that, getting the last insect and being afraid that the other's coming and so on. So this is most of our talks. If we really look around our farmland and looking what is the next insect, how to prove that there's enough water, what is with the sun. And so this is what we're doing to get, instead of 95% a good harvesting and so on. This is what we're doing with these things. Of course, it's necessary, but it's not the city. Because the city is not necessary. It's contingent. So we don't like that. That's an interesting thing, huh? This is what we experience, and this is the other book here. It's about the genius planet. We told all this story we had it with the energy. If you think about energy not in resources, but in cycles, if you think about energy in quantum terms, it's very clear. I can give it around as well. Then, it's illiteracy. So it's quite the opposite to nuclear energy, which is a kind of centralized control things. You try to play God directly or the sun. So, and of course, this crashed somewhere. Just the opposite is this photovoltaic. So photovoltaic is literacy. So you simply know how to dope your the foil of atoms. You dope it in a certain pattern, put it to the sun, and you have electricity. Which simply because you know, and it's like printing a newspaper. So it's computer it's information technology. It's not a mechanics, so it's very important. And you can have it with organic material or whatever. It's not the problem. The problem is that you're able to write. It's a pattern, it's an image, so you simply know how to do it. It's nothing to do with the sources. So because it's nearly nothing, and you put it to the sun, you get electricity, and it's getting cheaper because you are using more of it. Like with the screens and with the computers and so on. It's getting cheaper because you are using more of it. Because energy has nothing to do with resources. It's a logistical problem, not a logical one. It's in cycles. So the solar impact to our planet is 10,000 times more than mankind is using. And mankind now always uses nature as mediator to get the energy. And we are all right, this is not enough anymore. So nature is not strong enough to meet our energy needs. So we passed that. It's not sustainable. So it's not good farming. But with this photovoltaic, you bypass nature by intellect, not by resources. By factor 10,000. So you can calculate 10% for very low, cheap, low efficient, very cheap photovoltaic. It's factor 1,000. It's factor 1,000 or 10,000. So this is the area of Spain or Texas or whatever. It doesn't matter, and you have all the energy we need. And we know for 100, so 1980, I think, is a Nobel Prize for synthesis of sugar out of CO2, water, and energy, sun. You can have proteins, you can have gas, you can drive our cars, you can drive the airplanes, and we synthesize that. Nobody's doing it because you burn double gas to synthesize half of it. So it's bad. But if this comes from the sun, it's no problem. Bypass nature. Do the same with food. Proteins and so on. Don't take nature for... don't take nature for... This is the bad thing with these kind of not understanding what farming is. So because of that, we simply clean in a farmer's manner the whole planet because we think it's important to have enough food. And we need these farmland for that. It's no need for that, conceptually. We can produce these, the calories we need, we synthesize this, and then in principle you can go around and hunting the most precious berries and things and qualify the sugar and so on, qualify them. They are growing. It's even not gene technology. So we recently made a bar of chocolate with that. Completely without any tree, just growing. And you need nature as a partner. It's not a source. You can talk with it and go for hunting or collecting and discussing with it the most prestigious things, and then say, okay, go. You don't need to go and clean the ground or fight the animals, the insects, and so on. So, of course, it's good to have a proper apple, but most of the apples are with the juice. Yeah? So who cares about texture? Mostly. All these vegan people, they don't have texture at all. It's just mixed up stuff. Yeah? So if you reduce it's not this or that. It's about there's no necessity in harvesting or treating our planet we are guessed with as a source. We are intellectual beings. And I think these are the questions of the new citizens. We have to deal with that. And so that's with With this Genius Planet book, it's an awful story because this was our first book, and nobody liked this story. And you can read Steven Pinker's book, now he wrote 2 about these stories. We really need bad stories to argue for our research, for our companies, and for customers, and so on. So if you say, we are rich, we are stupid, that's okay, but we are rich. So, yeah, then people don't like it because they don't want to be stupid. So, we have that. Now I can show you with the information what I think. It's a crazy, and it's the same with us. So the motto of these Quantum City books, it means we say we are all migrants native to the universe. So we're really guests. So I feel, like it's a little alien native with these natives. So we are not. Don't feel really part of it. I'm a little alien. I'm a guest, and I have to be polite. And I'm glad that I'm hosted with this planet and so on. So, and therefore, I want to show you what these crazy things, for example, what information is. Yeah, nobody knows, of course not. But I want to show you about encryption. And it's for example, with these bitcoins and so on. There's this hype. And then there are all these bankers. 2,000, they're meeting in a cathedral and so on. Each of them pays £2,500. And then they're all listening like that to a nerdy, young, 24-year-old Russian genius, explaining them how this works. And it has to be nerdy, skinny, Russian genius mathematics. Otherwise, they won't listen. And they pay $1 million. It's one event, 2 million just from these bankers to get an idea what the hell Bitcoin is. So not always. The same is cryptographic. So you simply think, yeah, that's with the mathematics. That's too much. So I don't believe. So of course I'm not. Not a mathematician, and I don't know too much about it, but it took me quite long to get the most simple story about, for example, what encryption is. And I will tell you the story why I'm feeling alien. And more and more alien, the more I understand about computing. So this, for example, is a very simple function. It is modular. 1, 2. So if we evaluate that, this is 1, base 2 is 1. 2 is 0, 2 is you get, I think you know this kind of formula. It's always 1 or 2. Even numbers got 0, odd numbers got 1. So it's always downsized to O's and 1s. Very simple function. So you always turn the coin. And that's it. So you are counting rotations. It's always rotation. So now this is how this machine here works. For example, you can say I have this sequence of numbers to 2, and then it's making it very fast. Now, for example, I can have data. It's O's and 1s, something. And then I make an integer thing. Here you see that here. Now I make a random line, O's and 1s, of the same length. So, the interesting, we call that data and this key. So if I make now modular, like here, modular, we take data and key, I add them, so I add 2 of them, so this, for example, first is, for example, 1, O, the second is 2, the third is 1, fourth is 1, and so on. So if I add this 2, make modular on that, this is an encryption. So So the interesting thing is only that if you do it again, that's a crypt. Now, if you make a crypt with key, then you get the same thing again like here. Now you're with the data again.
Well, you have to know the key.
You have to know the key. Yeah? That's it. So now, and for me as a sensitive visual person, it's stunning. So now we are on the word, whatever it takes. Yeah. So some data. So this is Eastwood. Yeah. So this is Cleese Eastwood. This is my data now. A few hundred or 1,000 bits. So now I make the same thing. I make the key of the same bits, random, and I add the key to the data. So now let's make the key. This is my key, random. Now I add the data and key, make the modular. And the beauty is, it's random. So whatever you do, whatever you put in here, so whatever sense you have, put it with your key, it's gone. It simply left this is beyond, huh? This is beyond urbanization. It's simply not there. So no tool of analysis, no nothing will be able even to identify that there's anything. That's not true. Okay, we can talk again. Yeah? So, and of course now the other way around, if I do it the same, if I have this key, so I would say the key is the angle is directional to the horizon, and then you put your data, so your element of sense, you put it across the horizon in a certain direction, and it's gone out of this cosmos. So what you need is this direction, and then you can get it back. So this is what you're doing. If you are able to keep the symmetries and kicking it down and getting it back, then you get Eastwood back. So it would be interesting to discuss if it's if there is a conceptual problem in there, but I think that's it. And then you have technical problems to preserve the key. This is what a lot of technical things about. So how to transport the key symbolized as a key, and then you know there's a key, then there must be something there, you can get it back, and so on. So, but the phenomena with these data is that you are able to do these crazy things. So the rest is machinic construction around that. Good. One story, the episode. So give me another with Fourier. So, you all know this frequency and time domain. And then we have this Fourier, and they are orthogonal to each other. So my hypothesis is time domain you hear, frequency domain you see. So when you are able to transform it from the eye to the ear and back, this is with Fourier. Not a simple, but a function. And it's around circulation as well. So to illustrate that, this is Captain Beefheart. So this is a time domain. Wait. Yeah. Okay, doesn't matter, huh? You understand? You can hear it. So if you start to look at it, no. You can't see it. It simply makes no sense. So if you are in the time domain, you can hear it clearly. That's good for the ear, but you can't see it. So if you now go with Fourier, and then you have, for example, the spectrum here, and then you have chunks of your music, moving chunks of your music, and then you see the different frequencies in time and the movement of these frequencies over time. This is with the spectrogram here. Then you start to see the music. But to be able to do that, you need Fourier. You need to transfer from the ear, from the time domain, to the frequency domain. And this is what you can't hear, but see. And this is a fantastic year of citizenship, if you want to know. So this is how to instrument what you, so make it operatable, what you can see. This is a metaphor for that, what needs to be invented. That you are able to play the things you see, to be able to hear it. So this is directly with the spectrogram. So we start to instrument with our senses the visible to make it auditive, to make it speak. So this is a way back on another level. So we have, this is what we hear, this is a kind of analysis of what we hear, and this is the instrumentation of on the next level. So we make it play with that, according to what we see. But we made it auditive and use our visual sense. So this is what I think what we need to cultivate with machine intelligence. So if we have that, these kinds of analysis, this is the sound, so the visual thing of the sound of our planet, of our world. And we need to instrument that. And this is not part of the music. It's an intellectual thing. It's a notation. And this is what I think will be our literacy of the citizenship. So we have to be able to talk about these things. So we talk about these things and say, no, make it a little different, and so on. This is what architecture is about. This is our articulation. This is how we can stability in this flood of data. This is how we can get a person and not being transparent in this flood. So this is always our transparency here. We don't like it, but there's no way around. This is what the machines do. This is our Röntgen, there's all these pictures we get. Transparency, what we have. And we have to start to instrumentalize it and being able to talk about it and making beautiful new things never heard before. So it's a metaphor of how it works, I think. So I think that's enough. So again, give you about this circle, this spectrum here, the spectrality. This is what the HafenCity book, I think what the Quantum Citizen is about, and what the HafenCity book, this big thing, is just looking how the resonances are, the colors and so on, and bringing them to a certain point. So, and in architecture, we have these famous examples. No, we have to go to. This is always my example. It's a Villa Rotonda. Let's give you an introduction. This is famous. This is the most iconic building in architecture. So, Villa Rotonda, Palladio. So, and this is talking. In a way, we have to, I would explain 20th, 21st century's architecture. It's talking. And what you have to be, look at the inside. So this is a clear, expressive gesture. Talking with, then we have the history, with historical elements of a new kind of archaeology, of the antique Rome and the truth and the Greek temples and so on, constituting them in a new way, in a new mathematics and so on. So if you look at the interior, how being able to do that, so slow meanwhile, yeah. So, here, look at this. It's a panorama of the world. This is Google, huh? It's a private Google. And being rich like that, connected like that, having a tuned spectrality of the world, makes you able to go out of the village, go to the next hill, and make this crazy artifact there, super uncomfortable. And it's the most uncomfortable building I know. It had nothing to do with comfort. It's simply there, a gesture, in the bright sun, opposing the old village, and say, bah, and say, I know it. I can do it. Look at me. Yeah? That's a gesture of it. And he is rich of the world. And that's a spectrum. It's a mythological figures and so on. It's a spectrum and a certain spectrum of the world, and this is the architecture of a citizen. Using the ground of urbanism of his time. And celebrating that. This vertical gesture within light. So this is what I wanted to show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, in the beginning of your talk, you said you have one primary goal in this talk, to leave everybody in confusion.
No, it was not the goal. It was.
Now let's see whether this was successful. Questions or remarks? Yes. Oh, wait a minute. I got it.
You said at the beginning that it's all literacy, being able to talk, and I would like to know to talk about what?
About the world.
Sorry?
About the world and being a citizen in this world.
About work?
World. The world.
The world.
The planet. Yeah.
Okay, it's that general.
Of course.
It's not more specific.
No.
Okay.
We need to go. The city is where the gods are living.
And there is no one world. I mean, so
Yes, of course not.
Yeah.
Therefore, I say we have these different panoramas,
Okay.
the different tones and so on. This is what a person is. So you have to know. Then you have to understand the world, and then you have to know things, being able to talk about it. So you have to enrich in connections to the world, which is a panorama. So, and then you have to be outraged with it, or go to vertical, and then talk. This is what these artifacts are doing. And this is what we are facing now. So the problem, for me, the challenging thing is that things flooding away in all this optimization. And there's always the machines, and we are afraid of that. And then we're running faster, and then we get more aggressive with that, and then we are faking crisscross, and so everything is so. And we simply have to say, go, circulate all this crazy stuff, getting stable and keeping calm, and say clear words about what you think should be done, and start to negotiate with others, making your triangles, all these geometrical things, making cities. And say, we know. And it's good here.
Let me try to get a little bit more ground under at least my own feet. Usually what one expects from talk about architecture, it's somehow an applied field, and then you start somewhere and then you develop something. But you gave an eminently philosophical talk, ultimately, I would say. I'm not sure which brand of philosophy. In some parts of your talk, I thought sounds very much like Platonism, and that it sounded like, in other parts, it sounded like something like participatory realism. I'm not sure whether these notions make any sense at all, but can you help us a little more, just by delineating a little bit which kind of, I think we agree that it's a philosophical approach, but which one?
I had been very pragmatic since 10 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
so that's
and
clear.
then I said, well, it's working like hell. So what can we do then? So this is what I told at the beginning. So then we have to reason about that. So then there are two things. No, I'm not a philosopher. No, I'm an architect. I'm proud to be an architect. So I like mathematics, and I have certain acrobatic skills in computing, in coding, so technical skills in computer science. So this is my profile. So what I think is that architecture is not a discipline. So
it's not a discipline.
I think, so it somehow stopped around with the World Wars, or with the Second World War, to be explicit, that architects, for example, stopped thinking like I'm doing it. If you look at the writings from 1920, all the artists, all the architects gave talk like me. Talking about physics, whatever, and all the philosophical things, and knew everything of their age, of their time. So and somehow we lost that. So an architecture is not a discipline. So and if you look, for example, at Alberti, this is a hero in Renaissance. He, for example, he cracked this Caesar code as a mathematician. It's one of the most prominent architecture in Renaissance. So architect. So he wrote 10 books, which are the second important resource of architectural theory. So, but he cracked the Caesar code, so the encryption of his time, and he simply developed a new one as a mathematician. And then he was in biology and whatever. He wrote and all with a lot of different disciplines and so on. So architecture is a strange thing. You always try to. I'm very happy in these times. You try to understand the world and creating artifacts out of it, understanding what's there, and then have kind of masterpieces as a certain place, without major ambitions to spread it in an imperialistic way, or in a rhetoric way, and so on. Just create a thing of this world, which is deeply connected. It's always like that.
Okay, now we got two more voices over here. Joachim first, maybe.
Yeah, thank you. You succeeded in confusing me, but and I'm still fighting whether it's actually trivial what you said or deep. But so my question would be, and then I make a couple of comments. But my question would be, if you believe that the intellect which you celebrated in your talk is not algorithmatizable, so you believe, from a philosophical point of view, there are clear limitations of a machine. You cited Gödel, it was slightly incorrect, but never mind. These limitations do not apply to human thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Clear, yes.
You. The problem is
otherwise
that
I
you
would
make
very frustrated. Yeah.
No. But the problem is you make statements about the world if you believe that there is a reality out there, and at that interface you get problems with your beliefs, because then you are mixing up religion, metaphysics, with consequences of our way to deal with the existing world.
Yeah.
So the other question I had is, what do you mean by quantum? Because it's a loaded term, and the way I understood you is that you believe it's sort of not being able to be sensed by our senses. So you said the crisis came around 1900, and the crisis was that the Kantian categories of space and time were shattered by Einstein. And in a way that you have to admit that the predictive theory of Einstein was far superior to what we had before. So that's a crisis, I understand. So are you using that metaphor of quantum in that sense?
Yeah, but...
So with respect to your cryptography, I think there is a logical inconsistency in your argument, which is basically saying that if I don't see structure, it's random, but that is not the case. We are sense-limited animals. We don't see X-rays. We don't see infrared. We have limitations, and that's basically the limitations which you showed us. Adding a random bit string to a structure gives you a code. Yes, the second one is from an information content point of view, the second one and the first presentation is the same. That's why you can actually bring it back. Yeah. Our access to that is not the same. So it has something to do with attributing meaning to what we perceive, but it's not random. Random is a strictly mathematical definition, and that actually would not allow you to get anything back.
Okay, maybe you have to go in. Should we do that, or we can do it?
No.
Yeah,
so I think you point towards the problem that what we sell as information is a Stone Age notion and has very little to do with semantics. And I think that criticism is well taken.
Yeah, I understand. So, but of course, this is a visualization of an abstract notion of what these O's and ones are doing. So, the key thing...
So you could have randomly permuted all the bits and you would get a similar type of effect.
Course. Yeah, of course.
But it's the same information according to how we measure information today.
No.
No, it's exactly the same.
If you skip the framing of that, then there's nothing. If you forget what you're doing with the key, of course, if you keep track, then you can get it back. So if you forget the key, so which means the frame of this chunk of, so if you keep that secret, then there's no way to get it back.
No, that is not true. There is no way we know to not getting it back. But you cannot prove that you cannot get back this information.
You can get any kind of information with that. So permute that, and you can get all the pictures of this world. Permute this random picture, permute it, like with the Torah. You get all the names and all the pictures of this world. All the selfies are there, inclusive Eastman.
Clint Eastwood. Let me just intervene at this point, because I have a sense that your main point is actually not the technical details of this kind of encryption and decryption. Your main point is to illustrate what you call the crisis of intuition. No?
Yeah, there's an illustration of that. And the second thing is that so we are somehow blocked, that we make it this complicated. So we somehow, it's kind of immune system with this stuff, that we say it's complicated to encrypt things. And you need super sophisticated mathematics. It's not. So it's kind of social, it's an immune system to keep, so everybody can do that. It's super simple. So, and it's dangerous. I agree. If you do it like that, if you have these standard keys and so on, they somehow get it. I don't know what this kind of secret implementation. But with that, there's no way that anybody can get that. So it's somehow not good. I understand. I agree with you. So it's a complicated thing. And it's a part of the immune system of our societies that we simply say it's too complicated. Better don't look at it. So, but what we experienced since 2000 with the social media and so on, I would say, and what we experience now with transparency and so on is, that we really have a lack of understanding of these problems. And we have to cultivate that. We have to domesticate that with these super fast machines, we can encrypt whatever we like. And in a way, each of us like. So we can make the biggest nonsense because we're just jumping in and out from our planet and coming back at it. So we can do whatever we like without being able to trace. So therefore, we have to cultivate that. And that's the onlyest way, if we understand that, to make our panoramas and being able to make politics in our world of this time, where this is fighting us as civilians, as a civil society, which is urbanizing us. So it's absolutely transparent what we are doing. So therefore, I think it's reasonable to at least to realize that it's it's technically a super simple thing. It's not simple to make it in this speed, but intellectually it's insane complex to understand that. So my way how to get a clear image of that is because it has a lot to do with the perspective point of infinity and Renaissance and so on. I think we put it just in the horizon, keep the point, and then we can get whatever we like. And it's done. It's just one point, the whole world. And get it back if we know the direction. That's like with the Fourier and the tone and the acoustics. So you can't see it anymore. So turn it in and out, from the eye to the ear and back. You turn realities from rational to the real, from the rational to the real. It's done. And you can't mix it or put it to one. There's no way.
Sarah.
Okay, this may be totally off track and naive, and I will try anyway, trying to understand because I got confused. A couple of things. So you were asking about the philosophy behind it. It sounded like a little bit, the discourse, and you also mentioned this, belief system, epistemology, it's the ology words, and then, what exists in the world regardless of beliefs, the ontology. So somewhere you are between ontology and epistemology, maybe. Maybe you say no, yes. No ontology.
No logic, no logies.
No logies,
no.
Okay.
So,
because I understood that you said, okay, you get to the world, but just to understand, you mean the design, as an architect, you mean the designed world. You don't mean the world. You mean constructed, designed, human sphere kind of world, right? You don't mean, I don't know, soil sample or chemical compound or, right?
No, not design. Design is with the logical things. It's optimized, it's harmonic, it's comfortable, and so on. This is what Rem Koolhaas is characterizing as generic and junk space. And his slogan is, this is a Gödel slogan, you can't improve by doing better. Very prominent in architecture. And the problem is that everything is designed, so we really get set of it.
Or build. Maybe the design is a semantic. It's like a build, like architecture, like cities. Yeah. So it's not just
it's like the cities,
not the glacier.
Yeah.
Not right. So, okay, just to understand. Now my question. So, you said we have to talk about it, right? About that world, but you don't like, in a way, the senses. And I can only talk about it if I can first sense it, the world, right? So I'm trying to understand.
No,
why.
I like the senses.
You do like the senses.
Yeah, but the problem is the computers attack it. All these pictures, I like pictures, but there are billions of pictures every day, so it makes no sense anymore. So, and I love to take photographs, but I don't know what to do anymore with that. So I love it. I'm desperate. So I don't know what to do with it. And that's one of the motivations to make reason of. So it's simply gone with the machines. And it's gone that everybody is getting an artist, everybody is doing this, everybody is publishing it, and so that's a problem. I love it, but it's not working any longer. So you can't do it anymore. There's no meaning in it any longer, being an artist or being a good photographer. So you have to create meaning in a different way. So you have to turn the whole story.
Now
And therefore, I'm telling, and I don't know. So there's no recipe any longer. So I don't have a tutorial for that. I don't have an answer for that. But I think this is a question: how to deal with this flood of things, of this transparency and so on. And there's plenty. Therefore, how to master the generic? That's the problem.
Understand. I will pass it on. I think I understand.
I have one final question for myself. Maybe then there are others, but for myself, I have one question, and then I shut up.
Good.
Until we go to dinner. Can you scroll down to where you show the musical script? This one, exactly. I always thought that the ingenious thing with the musical script in the lower part is that it combines time information and frequency information in one picture, right? Yeah. So what you cannot put together in the Fourier domain and the original domain is put together here. That's really an ingenious invention. Now, then you said, this is the city. I don't know whether you consciously said that.
This is about cityness.
This is cityness.
This is about cityness.
Now
These kind of drawings are urbanization.
Yes, and this is the city.
This is about what we do. So this is a kind of snobbish, intellectual. Simply don't take this dirt. So simply discretize this stuff. So discretize it and make it instrumental. So you can play like this and not. It's muddy. Look, it's even the color.
It's not nice. It's ugly.
No, exactly. So it's with the senses. This is intellectual. There's nothing with the senses. And then you have to take the intellectual thing and make music again. But that's the next level. Then, of course, you can make this thing recorded again. But these are the loops. But this is the intellectual version of this mess.
Of both of them together.
Yes, but you need this kind of analysis, this kind of orchestration and so on. So 19th century operas are always in that. This is opera.
Yes, I know.
But this is chamber music.
You can also put an opera into music.
Yeah, but then it makes...
It looks different.
Okay.
Can you maybe say one or two more sentences about explaining this one statement? This is cityness.
No, it's an...
you can't.
It's a kind of no, this is a metaphor for what we are looking for as a citizen. So if you want to start to articulate and so on, it's like that. Or this is the same with the monochord with the old Greek, with Pythagoras. The monochord, and then you discretize these harmonics of that time.
So your philosophy is a philosophy of awareness.
It's no, I don't know.
Anyway.
I'm an architect.
Any other questions or remarks? Yes, I'm sorry. I really. That's a long shot.
I really like that kind of images that are showing how things are transforming into each other. But there's a gap in between the last and the previous one because it's not the same, I think.
These two.
The orange one, the golden one. No, the upper ones are the same, I guess.
Yeah, but this is another one. That's right.
But this one is another one, and
I
think
get the notation of Wifat.
I think this is exactly an important point because your metaphor goes along the line that we could find a way to talk about things, and I mean the point that series makes is that we are unable to talk about it because if you would transform the image into that notation, we wouldn't be able to play it.
Yeah,
so
you're right. So next version is to get person, these pictures, and the notation from the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
So he simply wanted to draw our attention to the fact that you were cheating.
It's a
Okay, over there. Oh, you got it already. Yes.
It seems that the premise of your argument is that the world is working quite well. So what we should be focusing on is instead of making it work better, we should be focusing on these sort of higher intellectual aims of literacy and citizenry and discussion. And I agree. I think that's super important. I'm curious. I think from Singapore and Zurich, you could certainly get the impression that the world is working well. But do you actually believe that overall the world really is working well right now?
No. I think that 98% of all the discourse and all the research is on how to get it working better. So then the numbers, and I think there is a clear limit of growth. So saturation. This is what Malthus did. So, and we are clear. So if it's 90%, and it's improving drastically, and there is a kind of point of saturation. So we have to take more and more care to get less and less results. So I think it has to be done, but it's not my point. So then we currently disengaged in improving things, so that we get. So we misunderstand that it's not the resources which go short, but our intellectual thinking on what we are doing gets short. So this is my perspective to that. So, and then I have this slogan, urban and the city. Very few are doing. So I don't know whether this is most appropriate, but just make this. So, and like always, there are very few cities and very few citizens and very few masterpieces. So, and that's a plaidoyer and the praise for paying attention to masterpieces, to the city, to the intellect, because this is what we are forgetting and somehow fighting and so on. So it's strange these times. So this is my argument, knowing that the rest, improving the agriculture, is done. So there is enough. So I'm not in problem there. So I think it's good that it's in principle it's a proper shape. So, and of course it's part of the game that we talk about and all the misdevelopments and so on. But in the long term, it's improving drastically. So that's not my point. So my point is we are forgetting in this engagement in improving, we are forgetting who we are. So then we get afraid with the machines, which is exactly what we are pushing in. So we are running with machines in improving our planet. So we have to get, say, I'm thinking, therefore I'm human. So the rest is with the machines. It's good.
So you also said that the sort of computers, it's not that we understand them, it's that they understand us. But from the previous lecture, I think you could argue that they are sort of an extension of who we are also. So that in some ways, if you take that argument, the computer, if it's an extension of our memory and our intellect and our cognition, then I guess the computer can't be necessarily dismissed as a mode of human self-knowledge as well.
Yeah, and therefore, I think this is what what we really have to learn. And there I think, but I don't think it's a kind of that we are included in a nature which is always like this, or I don't think and these are the principal philosophical or religious points, I think. I'm not believing in a story of success or progress, in a linear story. I more or less think in a cyclic way. So therefore, I think we are of a rebirth. So like Renaissance, it's a kind of rebirth, and then we face. People are as smart as our ancestors 10,000 years ago. They're the same brain, is as smart, and therefore it's as differentiated as like them. But with our tools we developed on this way, we have a more abstract attitude, a more distant and mediated technology-mediated attitude towards our environment, to the planet and our world. So they're getting more and more powerful by that. So if we outperform our predecessors, and because of abstraction, but we are not smarter. So, but I see certain symmetries in the problems they faced. So therefore, I think currently we are in symmetry to Renaissance Baroque or Greek to Roman Empire. So we can learn especially from them, and we are in opposition to Enlightenment, Gothic, and so on.
Okay, so for further clarification, I recommend to all of you to watch the video that will be on the Collegium's website in 2 or 3 weeks. It will show you the full symposium. And before I close the session, I want to thank, first of all, you, of course, very much once more, and also the other wonderful speakers of today. Thank you very much for being with us. And as you all know, we have events every other week, and you will find out about them on our website. And you're all welcome for the next one. Thank you.